Another one is that people care about their own motivations, not what you have to sell, not what you want to say, not your brand's why. People are focused on their own motivations, the context of their life, what they're trying to achieve. And without creating a relevant intersection, there's a challenge for brands right there. And I think that the other thing that I find to be, very interesting is that most brand leaders just don't know or understand what their customers care about and what drives them to be loyal. And without that information, they're missing a huge opportunity to attract other people who are looking for those same things. So to answer your question, the first step in this process is to understand your customers, to do some deep research, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, whether it's having conversations or scouring sentiment analysis and verbatims from reviews. It's understanding why people choose your brand.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Pontau. Each week I bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Kevin Perlmutter. He is Chief Strategist and founder of Limbic Brand Evolution, a brand strategy and neuromarketing consultancy which puts emotional insight at the center of how brands attract and retain customers. He's also author of Brand Desire, Spark Customer Interest Using Emotional Insights. Kevin works with businesses and brand leaders to create stronger connections with their brand and the people they want to reach. As a behavioral science-rooted brand consultant and as a customer centricity work session facilitator and speaker, to guide the development of more effective methods for brand evolution and customer engagement. Congrats on developing more effective methods for brand evolution and customer engagement, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
I love being here. Thank you so much, Karl.
So I think it's really important topic for companies to be aware of and much more well-versed in than they are is understanding the emotional state and kind of the mental state of their audiences, especially as given the shifts that have happened in the last year and how the economy has gotten so uncertain and people are in a much different mental state. We've seen the effectiveness of kind of your standard marketing techniques and ploys that companies have been using for the last few decades stopped working in a really dramatic way. So how do you recommend people go about adapting their marketing, and what are some of the ways you've helped your clients adapt?
Well, first of all, they need to understand their customers, and so much marketing is devoid of deep customer understanding. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about changing the status quo of how brand strategy and marketing has been done, where it's rooted traditionally in what companies want to tell people and what companies want people to know about their brand and product and service. And the shift that I'm helping brands make is moving from what companies want to tell people to addressing how people want to feel. I just came out of some behavioral science research for an active client of mine right now. And we were looking at emotional motivations to get involved with this organization. It happens to be a nonprofit. And we were looking at emotional motivations and that drive people. And what we noticed in our research was that at an instinctive emotional response level, using behavioral science research techniques that get at the subconscious instincts and strength of associations, people are feeling much more positive. And they're the word I'm trying to say is they are motivated by positivity at a much higher rate than they are motivated by negative fear of missing out, suggesting that they get involved or else, things will be bad for everyone. Those types of, without getting into the details of the research, we noticed that presenting the positive future state is going to be so much more motivating to people and connective in terms of a brand relationship than presenting them with the negative or making them fearful that if they don't get involved in something or that they don't do something is going to have negative consequences on their life.
That's really interesting because at first, when they go basic marketing that people learn is that people are motivated by that FOMO, or like there's that our brains are wired to focus on like the negatives or what bad things might happen and try and avoid those. But when there's already that's already so overwhelmed and everything's kind of already, people are really stressed out, trying to influence based on that is just overwhelming, and people will shut down. It seems like, and they kind of disengage, and it doesn't stand out from as something that is desirable as much as like what you said, like here's the positive future, here's what you'll gain, here's the transformation you're looking for. I can see how that, because of the overall kind of mental state is more stressed and negative, then that's what's going to be, I really want that because I'm unhappy with the current situation. So that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And, you're bringing up some really interesting points, because there is behavioral science that says that things like fear of missing out, scarcity, these are motivating things. There are cognitive biases that exist in the world that actually play into, when you play into someone's fears, you may be able to get them to act. You may be able to fear them or guilt them into feeling like they need to do something. But that doesn't equally translate to a strong connection with a brand that helps you feel something positive, that helps you see a better future, that helps you feel like that future is there and they're going to help you achieve it. If you can do that for someone, not only are you going to motivate them to come your way, but they're going to credit you with helping them get to that more positive state. And that brand connection will be stronger than the transaction you're creating by fearing someone into something.
I was just thinking that the fear play is much more of a transactional, just try and close the deal, but it doesn't build the relationship, and it doesn't get people, they feel, or they associate your brand with that fear response, not with the sense of positivity or connection or belonging that leads to a long-term mutually beneficial relationship. And so the over-reliance that the market's been trending towards for the last couple decades of all these fear responses and FOMO and scarcity to get people to buy in the short term is, I think, makes sense why that's no longer working, and how it's led to the lack of trust, because there's so many people they'll buy because that initial emotional kind of manipulation, but then afterwards they're like, well, this really, I don't get that sense of that I really got my money's worth. They kind of feel there's that buyer's remorse, and so then there's no trust, and so the next time it's less likely to work because they still remember how bad the experience was, and there's only so long that you can use that play before you're out of, there's no more like people to sell to because everyone's kind of turned off from your brand. And so that makes sense that especially given just an overall state of the market, that those sorts of plays are less and less effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if someone who's like realized, they've been relying on these kind of scarcity and FOMO approaches to marketing, what's the kind of first step to riding that ship and getting more on that like emotional intelligence and insights on the consumer? What's the first step they should be taking?
Yeah, I think, well, there are a few steps that we could take, but I want to actually take a half step back, because there are multiple things going wrong with traditional brand strategy. This idea of playing into people's fears is definitely a part of it, but there are other things as well. I mean, first of all, traditional brand strategy is stuck in the persuasion era, and it's more about what the brand wants to say and more about persuading people. Even like, think about the creative brief score that goes around any marketing services firm. The key points in the creative brief are the proof points and reasons to believe, the unique selling proposition. I mean, think about that language: unique selling proposition, proof points, reasons to believe. This language is rooted in a persuasion era where everyone working on that brief and working on the creative that comes out of that brief is focused on persuading and selling, as opposed to understanding people. So that's a huge challenge just in the industry as well. Another one is that people care about their own motivations, not what you have to sell, not what you want to say, not your brand's why. People are focused on their own motivations, the context of their life, what they're trying to achieve. And without creating a relevant intersection, there's a challenge for brands right there. And I think that the other thing that I find to be, very interesting is that most brand leaders just don't know or understand what their customers care about and what drives them to be loyal. And without that information, they're missing a huge opportunity to attract other people who are looking for those same things. So to answer your question, the first step in this process is to understand your customers, to do some deep research, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, whether it's having conversations or scouring sentiment analysis and verbatims from reviews. It's understanding why people choose your brand. And one of the best things that a brand leader could understand is, why do those current customers keep coming back for more? What attracted them to the brand? What are the benefits that they value most? What will they miss most if this brand disappeared? And they could count on the fact that if they get that information from enough customers and see trends forming in terms of what's drawing people to that brand, they can count on the fact that there are other people out there who want those same benefits. And those benefits are going to be emotionally driven. They're not going to be rational product features. They're going to be the emotional benefits that people want to feel, and what brings them into that brand experience again and again and again.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it reminded me of, there's a guy that he's retired now, but his business was helping law firms. With that, the situation a lot of law firms have is that there's one partner who's like the closer, who brings in like 80% of the business, and the other partners are helping out for the other 20%. But then that one closer wants to retire, or they're just trying to scale, and you're trying to figure out, why is this guy or girl so good at bringing in the clients? And it's often something that they don't really understand what the secret sauce is behind their process. And so this guy would help them basically talk with their best clients and ask them and really uncover, like, what's the real reason that you've bought and why you stayed. Same sort of thing you discussed there. And it's often something that is like a little almost idiosyncratic thing that the person is doing that makes people feel connected in that emotional way, but it's not an obvious, oh, it's because your prices are better, or because your expertise. All the things that most companies are talking about that they think are the USPs.
Yeah.
It's never those. It's always some little thing that's making an emotional impact. And so helping these law firms figure out, okay, this is what this one rainmaker is doing, that's bringing all these people and teach to the rest of your team so they can do that as well.
Yeah.
To build those connections. So then the partner can retire or whatever, or they'll scale. So I think it's that same sort of idea that, and this guy's moniker, the guy who retired, his thing was the client whisperer, which I love, because it's like you have to listen and understand what really is motivating your best clients to buy and to stay and renew. And it's not something you get from a generic surface level survey.
No, you'll never get that from a survey. You have to talk with people and understand what's wrong. And what you mentioned about law firms, I mean, law firms, by and large, are a commodity. They're filled with lawyers who are wonderful people, who all have specific skills, all went to law school, all got a law degree, all understand the law, and they are more or less qualified than others to do their job. But by and large, when you're looking for a law firm and you don't know all the nuances of what makes one lawyer great over another, which firm are you going to choose? And the same thing happens in other categories. In my book, Brand Desire, I talk about a small business in Westchester, New Jersey, that's a managed service IT firm. They do outsourced help desk services for small businesses on their computer networks and their email and their cybersecurity and all that kind of stuff. And they have 25 competitors right there in Westchester, New Jersey that do exactly the same thing. So how do you differentiate a brand like that, like a law firm, like many other firms that are supposedly commoditized? And what you were saying is exactly right. It comes out to the nuances of the brand experience. It comes out to what makes that relationship between the people who are working at the company and the people who are their customers or clients. How does that relationship happen in a way that is keeping people coming back for more? It's not about the fact that they can fix their email. It's not about the fact that they can install a new piece of hardware on a moment's notice. It has to do with the relationship, the quality of service, the attention to detail, the style of communication, the fact that people feel like this company has their back and will always be there for them when they need to be there. And one of the things that I look for in the brand strategy work that I'm doing, in the insights discovery work, where I'm understanding what makes the brand special and where I'm understanding what people feel they're looking for from a brand and where the relevant connections are, is what I call the shared emotional motivation. And the shared emotional motivation is what the brand and the customer is, what they're each trying to achieve individually and perhaps with each other. And for this managed service IT firm, the shared emotional motivation was always on. And I like a play on words. So always on the brand side is that they are always monitoring to make sure your network is up and running. They're also always on in the colloquial, we are on, we are good, happy, in energetic, vibrant people who are happy and there to serve you. On the customer side, always on means focus on what they care about. My business will never be down because my IT systems are not working. They always want to be up and running. So that is the shared emotional motivation that leads to brand benefits that are rooted in how people want to feel, accommodating, scheduling things on your time, always monitoring, these things that give people assurance that their needs are going to be met.
Yeah, I think it's that mindset shift from, it's not an us and them, it's a we kind of mindset. What do we both care about and what do we both want to accomplish? And I think that mindset shift is a key because it helps you avoid, when you're doing your marketing or your branding, to think, okay, well, what do we want to say? What do we care about? And it's not just what you care about, and it's not just what they care about, it's what you both care about.
Yes.
Because that overlap in the Venn diagram is where the real magic happens, that shared desire, that shared impact, that shared result.
Yeah.
And when you communicate that, especially these days with like, here's this positive outcome we both want, not only does it speak to the part of the brain that people are making decisions with right now or are making buying decisions with, but then it also creates that stronger emotional connections and the longer term relationship potential, because they're associating your brand with the source of that positive experience, that positive feeling, and they're not going to be left with the buyer's remorse or the, oh, I just got manipulated into buying something from these guys. I'm not comfortable with doing this again. And then you're just, the churn is never ending.
Well, and you don't want brands making promises that they can't keep, right? So you don't want brand benefits that are irrelevant. You don't want brand taglines that are over promises. You don't want people to be invited into an experience, come over and check it out, and then find out that everything that brought them there was inauthentic, fabricated. I mean, and this is the challenge we have right now. Sometimes when brand people are creating brand ideas or taglines, they're looking for the white space. They're looking for what is no competitor talking about? Let's position ourselves there because it's differentiating. But if it's differentiating yet inauthentic and not something they're currently delivering, and sometimes, brand people will say, we're going for the aspirational idea. Well, the aspirational idea doesn't get you very far if you can't deliver it, and you disappoint people when they show up. So you have to go for something that's completely authentic and that's why one of the greatest sources of insight for me is talking with current customers who are there, who value this brand, who keep returning. Why do they keep returning? Well, let's make sure that others know that these benefits exist. It doesn't require the business or the brand to change their stripes to meet the needs of a new campaign and then not be able to deliver it because it breaks them, because they're just not set up to deliver the benefits or the promise that campaign is now offering. So it's so important to be authentic going in, and you can be the most authentic you can be, not by sitting in a conference room and saying, hey, what are we really good at? It's by talking to customers and saying, hey, what are we really good at? And that's the way you figure it out. Yeah,
I love that. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Kevin. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please like, leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Kevin, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.